painter. He often paints figures. Figures are people. And he often paints them with this sort of light or that quality of brushstroke. And it takes all those things that it's learned and applies them to make something new. It's not theft, it's influence. And that is exactly how the human mind works too. AI collaborative art is the artist's vision and the machine's skill. And together, we make work I'd challenge you to call unoriginal. Now, moving on to the fun stuff. Let's talk about what we can now do with AI, remembering that right now is as undeveloped as it's ever going to be. Starting with video. We all know about text-to-image AI, but text-to-video is growing by leaps and bounds. Runway ML Gen 2 is the current leader, allowing for a wide variety of aesthetics. At the current pace of development, we'll see entire AAA films created by one person in their bedroom within a year or two. I should also mention Wonder Studio, which leverages AI to place any 3D character over any footage, even some taken from your smartphone. Accessible CGI is already here. While not exclusively video, Nerf applications such as Luma AI have been transforming the way we think about photography and film. The capability to scan your surroundings and have AI reconstruct them into 3D objects and environments, including motion and camera angles, will likely lead to a revolution in interactive film experiences and blur the line between gaming and cinema. I couldn't be more excited to see the experimental genres that emerge from it. Let's take a look at 3D. Using text-to-image AI as an opacity map, you can create flat or extruded 3D objects to quickly build custom 3D scenes. Combined with lighting and 3D figures, the effect is simple, lightweight enough for VR or AR, and quite beautiful. Soon, we will have access to NVIDIA's Picasso, shown on the left, which will bring text-to-3D model technology to the world. On the right, Unity's Muse, now in closed beta, also gives text-to-3D model capabilities, as well as a ChatGPT-style interface intended to build entire video games from text requests. Diving into fashion. AI art is useful in many ways for fashion. You can use AI images as masks to carve or extract clay, collage parts of the images into tiling fabric patterns, drop the patterns onto 3D materials like PBR, substance, etc., and put them onto 3D clothes. With the Apple headset coming out next year, I imagine AR and VR fashion will be a huge market. And if you're using Marvelous Designer, a 3D fashion program, you can export your designs as sewing patterns and give them to a tailor for custom physical fashion as well. The examples on this page are from a digital fashion piece I made for Gucci with fellow AI artist Emi Kusano. Let's talk about code. I'm not a coder, but I was able to imagine what I'd like to create, then ask ChatGPT to write p5.js code to make the pieces. The results stunned me. Interactive video and 3D experiences with zero knowledge of programming on my part. Some are afraid of this radical accessibility, but I can tell you two things for certain. One, I learned a lot of code from the experience. It's ignited a passion for learning more. And two, a programmer using AI in the same way would make me look like a finger painter next to their master work. Knowledge plus AI is always stronger than ignorance plus AI. Identity, near and dear to my heart. From avatars to NPCs, AI is ready to help. This program is called Character Creator. With a plugin called Headshot, you can upload an image of a face, and it will use AI to transfer the face to a 3D mesh, shaping the clay and mapping a high-definition UV. On the left is an AI image of a face I created in Midjourney, and in the middle, the AI face transferred to a 3D model. It's not perfect, but it's an amazing start. Once you have your character, you can apply animation and you'll have a custom avatar, or NPC, at your fingertips. Unity will also soon release Sentis, a program that embeds AI large language models into video games. So you'll be able to tell an AI model everything about your video game world, embed the AI, and have it run procedurally with NPCs capable of living deep lives and interacting with players like real people. Imagine feeding a model of all the Lord of the Rings, then having it create an entire playable world based on the rules and lore of that universe. Imagine this little avatar living within it, complete with memory and personality. A little future focus here. Globally, several separate teams have now created brain-to-image technology. The top row in each of the pictures are images people in neural scanning machines imagined in their head. And the bottom row in each of the pictures is what the AI was able to read and reconstruct from their brain scans. This is hard to comprehend, but true. Which is both thrilling, record your dreams, perhaps, and terrifying. Will we still have secrets from anyone? Finally, we'll end with language. A team of researchers off the coast of Portugal are recording whale songs. These songs are not just for survival, they're social sounds too. By feeding the sounds into a large language model, the researchers are slowly decoding the whale's language, and will theoretically not only be able to understand them, but play them back. This means within the next few years, we may be able to communicate with another species in its own language for the very first time. I don't have to tell you how that will change the world, it's self-evident, and this is possible because of AI. Speaking of interspecies communication, hello from my own AI avatar. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and I hope you're as excited as I am for the future.
Bueno, espero que os haya gustado la primera sesión y ahora estará con nosotros Oliver Halsman. La sesión será en inglés, ¿vale? Luego ya también está en directo y se traducirá al castellano, ¿vale?
Thank
Oliver,
you.
all yours. How long do you need? About half an hour?
I don't know. Let's just see what
go
happens.
with the flow. Fantastic. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. So Claire did a really good overview, and I guess my talk is going to be more about my journey as an artist using AI over the last 3 years. So it's going to be more of a personal journey as my art changed and as the technology changed, because with AI, it's just changing so fast. And really, I have a background as like a traditional artist, so really this is a conversation about like analog versus digital. Also, if you're here earlier in the session, I run my grandfather's photo archive, so it's an analog photo archive, but I'm also a photographer and I work with digital, so it's just about learning new tools and how we can use these tools to kind of reimagine previous bodies of work and create new bodies of work from what we already have, because as Claire started her introduction, she said, a lot of people think AI is theft, and with the AI and the IP, intellectual property, copyright conversation, there's so much pushback against AI that it's stealing other people's work. So I started operating from the premise of, well, what if I just use my own content as my pool? But before I get into that, I just want to give some background on my own journey. This is a project I did with a friend. We called ourselves Crust and Dirt, and we were living in San Francisco, and he was dating a woman in Japan at the time, and he was using these like early Apple cameras to talk with his girlfriend. And this is before Skype and Zoom, and we were working together collaboratively, and one night we had this idea, well, what if we put like a laptop out in the middle of the street in Japan with a sign that says, tell us your dream or wish, and we would be on the other side and we would draw it for them live. So in a way, this is like analog AI, which is, you type in a prompt and then the image comes up. So this was almost like an analog AI. So this is like our setup. We would wear masks. People would come up and they would tell us their dream or their wish, and we would draw it for them live. So AI works kind of in the same way. You type in your dream or your wish, and it manifests. But when I first started working on AI, and this is, this guy was in Korea. He wanted to be a famous movie director. So we had to just think on the spot. We would trade back and forth. He would film and I would draw, and vice versa. And we always had to be like, okay, how do we bring this dream to life as like a pen drawing, like instantly? Then another project I did was called Pixel Sutra. It was in 2011. This was on the transcendental nature of the pixel. So I'm really into like philosophy and Buddhist concepts, and I was thinking about, pixels on a screen will basically, they have no personality. They'll just become whatever we tell them. The same red pixel can be on a rose or blood. It's just, so I was just like exploring these like philosophical concepts through like early glitch art and like filmmaking. And then again, like I just have a background, like I write a lot of catalog essays for my grandfather's legacy. So I'm always trying to distill my thoughts into writing. So this is downloadable. If you go to my QR code, you can get the scan. It's called Organic Cyber Cafe. And again, it's like looking at life through the prism of the technological metaphor. So I'm not going to get too into it now. So I also do like this body painting as photography. And when I first started to get into AI, this was like during 2020. It was COVID. We were all locked into our rooms. And there was this project called Runway ML. Now a lot of people know Runway Gen 2. But at this point, people were making data sets of like the human face. So they would photograph somebody against a white screen, and they would try to get these average faces or new faces based on like an average, or like a vase or a glass. There would be like hundreds or thousands of different glasses that they would all shoot against like the same background, and then the AI would kind of find some averages. So I was like, well, what's going to happen if I take a data set where nothing is the same, and then my premise with technology is like, how do I break it? How can I push it? How can I get it to do stuff that it's not meant to do? So I just started getting these like really bizarre results that were, I don't know, it kind of blew my mind, because this isn't what I was hoping for or expecting, but they were just so intriguing. And so this is called GAN technology. So I was experimenting alone again. It was like I had my hard drive and I couldn't leave my apartment in New York. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I did this with all of my black and white body of work. So what happens? Okay, and this is the movie one, if you want to play this. So the cool thing about GANs are you can, tell your starting point and your ending point, and it will kind of reconstruct the difference between the two. So then I was getting these like really bizarre films, and I decided to mint some as NFTs. And this was again at the early NFT stage when there weren't so many NFT artists or even AI NFT artists at this point. So then I took my color data set. Again, it's like something like an experiment just to see, and I was getting all these like beautiful abstract images that I could have never imagined or created on my own. And this is like way before text to image based prompting. So this was my kind of initial discovery with AI. You know, you upload like 500 images, the machine learning kind of computes it for 20 hours. And then you can kind of make these endless, you know, it's just every time you hit refresh, you could kind of scroll on this screen of thumbnails and it just auto-generated. And it was just fantastic to watch, and you just would pull out your favorite ones. So again, I didn't really have like an idea of where I was going with any of this, but I was just excited to like develop a new skill set. And as an artist, you know, you're always interested to see something new. I mean, oil painting's been around so long, and this just felt like, well, this is like new territory to explore. So then I said, okay, well, what if I shoot a set with a consistent background? So I shot a friend against a green screen, and then I got these very kind of Lucian Freud, you know, deformed bodies. And there was something there. For me, as an artist, there was just something to explore. I've never seen anything like it. It was a little bothersome. It was a little weird. But part of the problem was all of these images were like super low resolution thumbnails, essentially. They weren't like high resolution. So again, then I was like, okay, well, what if I have two people and I paint their bodies and I have them all in sort of different poses? You know, what is the data set going to produce? And again, I was getting these like very bizarre, you know, human forms that were somewhat intriguing to me. So that was my workflow, let's just say, for like the first couple months of like discovering AI. And at this point, I kind of felt like that's as far as I could take it. Okay, one more data set. Now I was using an umbrella and reflective floor material. And again, I was just like in love with these images, and I'm the kind of artist that produces a lot, and I think, okay, maybe someday this will be a painting or a drawing. Let me at least create like a large body of work that can, you know, I can refer to in the future. So because I manage my grandfather's archive, I have access to all of his contact sheets. So I think this was like a contact sheet with like Audrey Hepburn on it. But because these were thumbnails, and I'm just used to seeing smaller size imagery on contact sheets, I thought, well, it'd be interesting to take something like super futuristic, which was the AI, and blend it with something super analog, like a darkroom contact sheet. So I started to do these collaborations and just like imagining like, you know, because it looks like it was shot on film, the way they're kind of haphazardly placed when he did the contact sheets. So I was taking something like super digital and bringing it into something like organic. And let's just say like this kind of became a thread through my work where I wanted to do something to like juxtapose. I like juxtaposing the mind in terms of like time and technique. So this is kind of like where this project went. I was like, oh, maybe I'll make a book of contact sheets, of AI contact sheets, because of course none of these images can be created with a camera, but now you look at them and they have a feeling as if they were shot on film, and it makes you think, well, what world were they shot on film in? So this was another experiment during COVID times. Again, using the camera and thinking about the metaverse, I figured a way out to take like a 4-dimensional photograph. So I was thinking, okay, everyone's building out the metaverse now, and what it's missing is like art and sculpture. So I'm thinking, okay, in the future, you know, when everyone has their metaverse Zoom chat room where you're going to invite your people to hang out, you know, like people are going to want to have like art around and different objects. So I was thinking, you know, how can I create something more like a sculpture? And I called it like 4D photography because it exists in time and space too. You can like walk around it, and then this is a technique, it's like a point cloud, like LiDAR scan. So you can just see, I don't know, it was just an experimental time. I was trying to figure out, okay, I'm in this room, what can I do with my camera and this new technology, blockchain, metaverse, NFTs. But again, these file sizes were so massive, I couldn't even mint them on chain. So I kind of just sat on them, really, for a while. So that was like photogrammetry. So then I found a trunk of my grandfather's 1930s glass plates from Paris. And I was thinking the same thing. Well, how can I transform this, you know, fragile glass plate into like an object that can be interacted with, like in a metaverse? And I was going to use these to fundraise for like a documentary film I'm making on his life. So these were kind of like early tests to give people like an example. Again, the file sizes were so big, it was hard to. Most NFT marketplaces have like a limit size for the file. And when I compressed these down, they just didn't look as good. So this was just kind of like a walkthrough of what that technology can do. But again, I think it's interesting to like, you know, allow people to experience like the tangible world in the digital world, and not just everything that exists in the digital world doesn't have to be created now. We can also bring in artifacts and things that have more of a tactile feel to them. I liked how the paper was kind of breaking off on the corner there. I don't know, I think it just makes the digital space feel like more comfortable, like everything isn't perfect, all the lines aren't straight. So yeah, these are just like different writings, just trying to understand how to relate to the metaverse through writing. So this is another project I did. As I was watching the NFT space, I was thinking, okay, how do I bring my grandfather's work on chain, and how do I create a new audience for his work? Maybe the younger generation doesn't know who he is or what he made or the kind of technical innovations he did in his lifetime. So I was thinking a lot about like, what is the blockchain? And the blockchain is a ledger. It's a digital ledger. And what is a ledger? A ledger is a form of writing. So because I'm the archivist, I have to go through the drawers, the files, and pull out negatives and look at my grandparents' handwriting. I'm like, okay, so that's the analog ledger. You know, I have a collection of envelopes, each with like the date on the side or different notes. You know, these prints were sent here or there. So I was thinking, well, how do I bring the like analog ledger onto the digital ledger, and how can I allow people to collect the most iconic work without taking the iconic work and minting it as a JPEG? Because I also run like our licensing business. So if a museum wants to show something, or if a client needs an image, I have to send them a JPEG, a scan. So I was thinking, I don't want to sell that. I don't want someone else to say, well, I own the JPEG of this thing, which I'm actively licensing, and it's our IP. So what's a workaround so people can still collect the images, but then they're also getting like a piece of history. They're seeing something that that no one else can see because I'm showing them what the archive looks like. And it's also a way to kind of wink, wink at the blockchain as a ledger and put something historically on chain with like the analog ledger and the digital ledger concept. So this is a series that I've been releasing on Super Rare, and each one was, you know, I got to arrange like a collage and a composition, and it's a collection of 69 different images. But I think like this was the way I was comfortable to like use this technology, like that honors the past, but also shows that as an archive, we're open to explore possibilities and show other archives, because my grandfather was a Magnum photographer. So it's like giving permission for other archives, like how they can bring their work on chain in an interesting way, in a creative way, let's say. And because I'm the grandson, I have full creative license because I don't have to check in with a board or an institution or anyone to give me approval aside from my family trusting me to do the right thing. So then my next project I decided, okay, this was when all the ERC 1155 tokens, which are the, it's not the one of one, but it's like a multiple. So I said, let me do an ERC 1155 for everyone who's bid on or like won the first 10 releases. So I took one of my grandfather's self-portraits with a snowman, and I decided to run it into Stable Diffusion. So this was my first attempt. So Stable Diffusion, now we're like fast forward to like last year. This is like everyone knows like AI, you can do like a text to image based prompt or now a video to image based prompt, but you can also do something called like an image, an initial image, an init image. So I was like, okay, this is fascinating because I have all this IP, all this fantastic stuff. Like, how can I bring in my grandfather's work? And these were kind of my tests to just see, what happens when I change the prompt? How can I reinvent this material, drawing on my own influences? So what you do is you put in the initial image, and then you can put a text prompt in as well. So it's gonna like look at the image, and then it's gonna change it based on like the words. And Stable Diffusion's really cool. It's super nerdy, but there's like so many different things you can tweak to get really, you can just, it's like I have a lot of friends who are DJs, and there's so many like knobs you can turn and levels to play with. So my intention with this was to create a video piece, and I'll play it in a second, just a portion of it, because I have a big audio archive too. So I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool to take my grandfather's voice and use create an animation based on this initial image and let the AI spin out, but time the prompts based on what my grandfather was talking about. So I'll just play a little bit of this.
Coming to a new rule and also to a double rule.
Is the volume good?
You can add an interesting element and make an interesting picture. Or you can remove a very important element and make the picture again interesting. And the next rule is, if you have an idea, push it more and more at the extreme. Next idea. On top of one idea, you add another idea. The first idea is the obvious. The second is the semantic or the literal translation of an idea into the picture. The third one is use an unusual prop or an element. It's good if the element is Freudian, then, or add an element or remove an element, the missing element. Then, the fifth rule is the unusual surrounding. The sixth one, the contrast, the discrepancy, the incongruousness. Then, the seventh, never forget all your knowledge, art, science, and so on. To be a good inventive man, you have to read, you have to enlarge the reservoir from which you can get things, because it is impossible to create anything from nothing. The next one is the number 8, push the idea to the extreme. Top it, continue to push it to the extreme. Number 9 is try a new approach in angle.
Okay, so that goes on, but that just gives you an idea of just the creative experiments I was doing with like the audio IP and the visual IP and AI. So once I went through that experience and I realized I could use the initial image, I thought back about this photograph that my grandfather took, this Dali skull. And again, I ran through the same process. I wanted to take this image, and I generated, let's say, 10,000 different variations and edited them down to a group of 550 and released those as a collection, a blind mint. So it was randomized. You didn't know what you were going to get. But again, for me, this was like an interesting way to collaborate. You know, my grandfather collaborated with Dali. I'm collaborating with AI. I'm collaborating with my grandfather and Dali. Just trying to think of innovations, because what I realized, like, well, if I can do this, then anyone can do this. And how can I protect our IP? Like, let me do this first. Let me be a thought leader in the field. Let me try to create something interesting and show other archives what can be done, and also protect our own IP from someone else doing the same. And also something through the process was really interesting to turn a photograph into something like a 3D object. And for me, that was really compelling as an artist. Like, I don't know, just taking something old and making it new again, kind of reinventing the possibilities. So then I tried it with my own photograph. I was at this music festival, art and music festival in California called the Bombay Beach Biennale. This was a photograph I took of a performer. And again, I started running it through the Stable Diffusion. And so here I'm like using my own IP, I'm using my own data set. You know, I like that one photograph, I like the composition, I like the colors, I like the shapes. And you know, the thing with AI is, you know, you can just generate like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of images. So then it becomes like an editing process, because, you know, and then I decided, oh, well, if I can do it with a photograph, then I can do it with a film. So I shot a movie on my iPhone, and these were my different tests to get the right seed, because when you're using AI, in Midjourney it's a little different, but in Stable Diffusion, if you put in a seed number, it will create everything, all the subsequent frames based on like the fingerprint of that seed. So I was just going through and trying to find the right seed, and then this was like an experiment for Hollywood. I was in LA at the time, and I thought, well, the future of filmmaking is going to be in the hands of the creator. You're not going to need a big studio to do it. So a friend and I just kind of ran around for an afternoon. I kind of shot some weird footage of her. I spent, you know, a week or two getting the right seed, and then I ran the whole video through Stable Diffusion to kind of see what's possible in terms of filmmaking when it comes to just being a one-person production studio. And then I found another friend. There's more to that, but I'm running out of time. So I met this, then I was like at a poetry reading the next week, and this woman read this incredibly profound technology-based poem. And I said, oh, I want to animate your poem.
I want to be a Tamagotchi, beeping to be fed. I want to have thousands of nanobots in my bloodstream, swimming through me like a school of fish. I want the forever chemicals I ingest to build molecular fortresses and castles inside me that endure forever. I want the blue light that floods into my pupils from my phone to illuminate my insides like a rising moon. I want to make snow angels in the toxic dust that industrial life has coated us with. I want deposits of lead to hang like stalactites and stalagmites off capillaries in my neocortex. I want to be colonized by microplastics. I want hormone disruption seeping into my morning coffee from my paper takeout cup. I want to lie in a vast expansive field, surrounded by mechanical drone butterflies, sun tanning under a million artificial suns.
So again, just, shot that in an afternoon, walking around New York City, Times Square, Central Park, Museum of Natural History. So just imagine what this is going to be like when actual Hollywood studios can do this. This is just something I'm doing on my laptop. Then I was in Japan, so now I'm talking about another technique, which is on Midjourney, called Blend. And now on Midjourney, you can create your own data set. So I love doing like street photography at night, so I was creating my own data sets. And then I was creating these images with Midjourney, with the prompt, to just imagine, it gives it a more photorealistic feeling. Again, it's like using your own data sets, but AI, so it's something very unique to you as an artist. Not anyone could use Midjourney and get these results because they didn't have my data set. So this is another way artists can use their own photographic data sets to create new images that have never been seen before and have kind of a taste of reality, but also exist in the imaginary world. And the last piece I'll talk about is what I did for this show. Again, it's starting with the collaboration my grandfather did with Salvador Dali in 1941. I got to give it up to my grandfather. He was inventing all these analog techniques at the time before Photoshop. He was doing it all in his darkroom. So I was thinking about AI in general and how AI is like this Pandora's box. So I was trying to imagine, what's inside this egg or this box of this AI that's being born at this moment. So these were, again, just like you change some settings. This is, again, in Stable Diffusion. You change some settings, you change the prompt a little bit, and you get these wild results. And I think the hardest part of being an AI artist is you get so much content at the end. So this is the final one. And I had some run-throughs, but I'm running out of time. The last one I want to just show you is you can even make art. This was like a breakfast I had. Like, this is just like a random shot from my iPhone roll. So this was a breakfast I had in Paris like a week or two ago. And I thought, okay, well, what if I run this, through the AI? Like, what's hidden in my omelet and salad? And you would never know that this was like a starting point as an omelet or salad. And you can like run it through and up-res it and get better details for all of these. But basically, like, the thesis of this talk is that AI, you can just steal from yourself. You don't have to steal from other people. Like, we all have like thousands of images on our phone that are not being used. So instead of trying to reinvent something based on other people's creativity, we can like use our own creativity as the starting point. So, okay. Thank you. But yeah, certainly if anyone has any questions, please. Yes?
So before you talk about IP theft
Yeah.
and how AI is not theft, but it's actually a form of creation. But at the what's your opinion on the fact that somebody could get some images of your grandfather from the internet and not be creative? It wouldn't have the soul of the history you would have with the connection,
Yeah.
but they could still get some images done through Midjourney, Dali, and sell them as an NFT and profit that way.
Yeah, this is the fear of, like, I think all estates, and that's why I was just trying to be a leader in the field, so at least like I can stake out our territory. But I think for a lot of archives, and look, it already happens. I was walking around Barcelona yesterday, and people are already taking photos of Dali and painting over them and selling them in frames at these little DIY or murals. I mean, the more popular an image is, like, the more people are going to borrow it already. So I just think you can't stop it at a certain point, but at least you can be a thought leader and try to allow people to recognize that you're doing this, so maybe they should do it with other IP instead of going for yours. But yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's happening every day. I think this kind of started happening with music and sampling, and how everything went from, you used to save up to buy a record or a CD or something, and then once everything became streaming, no one owned everything, but if it was online, you felt like you could borrow it or use it, even though there was no sense of ownership. So I think we're just living in a time where, like, the psychology of people is changing around, like copyright and IP, and all I can do as an estate manager, instead of like sending lawyers after people, is to like do it and do it better than anyone else can do it, so that if anyone else tries to do it next, you can say, hey, sorry, like, do you mind? Like, we're already working on this, But there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of potential for everything that's public domain. But yeah, at a certain point, you can't police the world, but you hope that there's like a respect in the art world. You would hope, but artists love to break rules, so. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Oh, yes, sorry.
Comment the last idea that you shared.
Yes.
Because our phone has millions of videos, and that idea and this idea that you provided, you really can use your own creativity.
Yeah.
This weekend.
Yeah, I think the future, we haven't even seen what's coming. Like, I think the most fascinating thing, like, for years I've been thinking about this, and Claire kind of touched on it in her presentation, but there's going to be a point where people can, put these sensors on themselves when they go to sleep at night, and then their dreams will be recorded. So instead of YouTube, you'll have You Dream, and people will be like content creators based on their dreams. And like, someone should build this platform now. I was trying to raise money to build this platform now, because I'm like, okay, you can take your dream and run it through this stable diffusion filter or just as its own, and you can subscribe to people who are really good dreamers or lucid dreamers, or it's like a whole new, people will be able to make money while they're sleeping, So I think there's no limit. So like, yeah, we are sitting on so much content, like our brains, when we sleep at night, it's full of movies. So, even that's better than going through like a film roll and you're like, oh, let me, it'll be like OnlyFans for dreams. You'll be able to subscribe to certain people who are really interesting dreamers. And so I think like all of this technology is going to create so many interesting new art techniques and things that we've never seen before or imagined, but yeah, it's just going to be it's like a renaissance we're all living through.
Because it's a very good starting point. People are starting to develop their own creativity.
Yeah.
It's good to start because people always say, where I start, where are the people I can get.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can go through everything that you have recorded in the last 5 years. Maybe you have recurrent things there.
Yeah.
Say they're very interesting to you, so you can develop from there. So
And now they're apps. I mean, honestly, these videos I did at the beginning of the year, now I see advertisements on my Instagram scroll for apps that do the same thing, but it's just an app, so you don't even have to compute it in your GPU credits on your Stable Diffusion. You can have an app do it. So the technology is moving fast, like every 3 months, every 6 months, AI, it's just like, that's why I started with my really early work, because it looks so basic, but what I did with the breakfast plate, I think I can go back to my early GAN work and kind of, create new work based on that. So I think the idea is, you can recite, like we already have so much, we don't have to invent something new. It's like we already have produced so much content that we don't have to think there, what can I create? It's like we're already sitting on mines, our own database, our own IP. So yeah. Okay. Thank you, thank you.
Will you introduce me, or I will do it by myself?
Yeah, I already introduced you earlier, so
Okay. Okay. So, my name is Kirill. I'm a photographer for last 8 years. I came into NFT for around 1 year and a half ago, and I could say that it completely changed my life and gave me an opportunity to create such projects as this one, which we are going to talk about. I usually love to make some kind of experiments, to engage collectors, to engage audience. And for these projects, I decided to create some kind of tickets, which is having some retro vibes. And I distribute. I made a short amount of these tickets, short amount of these pieces, which you see here. And I gave my collectors an opportunity to jump into a project which gave them an opportunity to join our closed Discord, to make some engagement with the project, to participate in the creation process. The idea was to collect all the emotions together and make something collaborative, to make their ideas and my own ideas into one single project. So, we started, as a photographer, I prefer shooting different types of photography. The first one is some kind of model test, which you see on the first picture here. And the second type is some kind of experimenting with lighting and techniques. And the third one is my ideas and my thoughts on the topic of duality, of some kind of searching of equilibrium. And I asked my collectors which kinds of these three spheres they want to explore with me. And together we decided with some community votings, we decided that we really want to choose the third one. I will provide with some of Discord screens of my collectors when we were talking about when we were choosing and voting about all of these three ideas. From this point, when we decided that this one is going to be a great choice and we are going to work on this one, I saw that many of people are not perceiving the same idea, perceiving the idea the same. I mean, each of them has their own opinions and ideas about one single shooting. After that, I decided and I make a couple of mood boards which are showing their duality for myself, and we have to choose one of them. If you will look on the screen, the main one which we choose is the big one on the left part. And I said it's some kind of general mood board. It's only showing the different small ideas which are at the end it's something complex. We also have some Web3 style mood board on the right corner. and the third one in the down there. With the community voting, once again, we choose the left one. Any project, any such complicated project starts with some paintings. I'm not the best painter, but usually when you want to make and create your idea and your shooting, you need to start with a scratch. And usually I'm doing such types of paintings to describe for myself and to the team how the project will look like. And we started with this, and on each stages I shared with collectors with all their stages. After that, if I go, could I go back? Yes. On the general mood board, you could see the snakes in those corners. And I really wanted to, I usually love to experiment with some different types of skin on the model and to create characters who are not really comparable with the real world. So I decided, for this project, I decided to use snakes and snake textures. You could see our first fitting with the snakes. On the right corner, you see the snake skin. On the left corner, you see our model, which we choose with the snakes. And it was kind of hard to bring everything together because their snake skin, the material which you see on their right side, it's not very, it's not possible to find it in a good amount to cover all the body of the model. So I had to travel a lot, around 1,000 kilometers around my hometown to collect everything from different people who are working with snakes. And at the end, before the shooting, we have a couple of big plastic bags with their skin. Is it going to play? You're going to see the backstage of the shooting. Maybe. Just go.
They love me. They say I've got a type, I just think melody. It's cold on the streets, or so they tell me. I keep the conversations briefly and conspiracy. I like bad boys, I know they love me. They say I've got a type, I just think melody. It's cold on the streets, or so they tell me. Keep the conversations briefly and conspiracy. Different places, but the road stays the same. Every man's a driller till he's in the back with my name. Different places, but the road stays the same. Every man's a driller till he's in the back with my name. You can run and hide, run and gang. Only one winner in this bitch and I win everything. Should've picked on you, was pretty, now I like a pretty guy. Said I pick him crazy on the line, kinda sly. Just my type, if he's fucking on the side. Whoops, I didn't know he was yours, cause he's mine. I've been fucking every night, I don't even have the time. Like to fit him in, and he seems to like it fine. Come go let your man, if you want him, I don't mind. I don't give a fuck, but I guess I always do. If it isn't wrong, then I'm not looking out for you. Only making eyes, I heard niggas 1, 2 of the crew. If you got an attitude, I'm gonna take a ride of you. You can run and hide, run and gang. Only one winner in this bitch and I win everything.
As you just saw on the video, such projects usually requires a lot of people in the team. I mean, people usually think that photography is just pushing a button. I usually meet such perception in their Web3 space, in their Web2 space, because sometimes it looks like a flat picture, but usually behind this is a lot of work. And for this project, we made, as you saw, we not only cover the skin of our model by the snake skin, we also use some kind of plexiglass cube to show their some kind of plexiglass cube and fabric draping on the background to show the artificial space around the model and to show the nature inside of this box. The idea was to show the duality between the nature creation, which is living inside of the aquarium. here you will see their here you will see the stylish video from their shooting, which also includes some of the frames. And also you could see here, if you remember, I showed you their prepared paintings, and I usually like to work like this. We have our scene, like people working in cinema. We have prepared stages of all scenes. And right now we are going to talk about troubles, because in every big project, especially when you have like a big team, like 10 members, 15 members, it's not possible that everything will go according to the plan. It's not really possible. And we made this shooting with some kind of wedding agency, which usually works great with fabric because they are draping fabrics for weddings. And on the left shot, you could see the result of their work. It was night before the shooting. Our shooting is coming in like 7 hours, and I'm on the set. I'm in studio with this team, and they just did this result. And you know, I was completely out of energy. I was tired. I came to my home and said to my wife, I don't know how we are going to make it. I prepared everything, but this looks so terrible. In the morning, we went to the studio and did everything by ourselves, and you can compare the result of the team work, the people from people whom I hired, whom I paid some amount of money, and the results that we did by ourselves. Also, if you will back to some close-ups. The skin turned out is a very soft material, and it wasn't really flexible. And when our model have some movements in the frame, it was stretching and broken. So it was kind of hard to find right angles for her, and also it requires a lot of post-production and to make the holes to paint their pattern on the holes. I think, yes, I think that's it. If you have any question, I will be happy to answer on them. We were on the set for I think 8 hours. We were shooting for almost 8 hours, and we had to make the studio warm and wet, because if the air was dry there, it begins to break every second. So we just turned all the windows, turned all the doors, put the air conditioner on warm, and swearing. Every of us was sweating. Sweating. Swearing, okay. So. It's real skin. Yes, it's not like it's not dead skin. It's the skin of the snakes. Who? Yes. They just put this skin. Usually, this type of skin used for some merch. Like people love to use it in some rituals and such stuff.
you worked with snakes a lot in the past?
No, it was my first experience, and I tried. I came to the guy whom we choose to took the snakes. I came there and I put them on myself. After that, we bring the model there. I ask her if she will be, if it will be comfortable for her to work with snakes, and we make her couple of fittings, and so we just make some shots on iPhone, and from those points we decided, okay, that works great. But also on each point we have some extra plan B, like okay, if this model won't want to work with the snakes, we have another model, or also we have a chance to to remake a bit the scene. So.
Were you ever worried about the snakes, like, you know, having an incident with them, being aggressive?
We were with a guy who is working with them for 10 years, and on the set, it was a situation. The model was The model was in the box, as you saw, and the snakes don't really like when you're moving with some objects in your hands. And the snake tried to bite me, but there it was a cube, and it just tried to bite the cube. But I don't know why, but the snake which we use really love the model. They were working great together. I mean, the snake trying to protect the model.
So they're not giving any sedative?
Yeah, everything was smooth.
The casting, the model is great.
From conception to the actual realization of the project, I imagine there's a lot of steps, as with anything you create. And my question is, with the obstacles, how much do you try to keep the original concept you're trying to make versus using the obstacle as an opportunity to like change something and take into account of the...
From the starting point, from the starting point when we started to decide with collectors which way we are choosing, I have many ideas. I mean, for each of the concepts which I show, after which chose the duality concept, we had 3 ideas, and from each of them I have different types of shootings which I really wanted to create, and I was giving collectors a chance to choose those one which we really want to create and to make. And at the end it turned out it's not possible to predict everything. I mean, we have there, even I had those paintings and I have some shoots which are the same as on paintings. It's not the same as I thought at the start. I mean, even if you plan everything, you had to save some space for experiments, because on the set it's not the same as in your plan. So, thank you for your attention.
After setting up, we'll need another 5 minutes. Do you mind showing your work reel? Some of your other pieces?
Yes, but I don't know how to open it. If we could, I can show their project with Equilibrium or Red Triptych, but.
Okay, are we connected from here? Conectamos desde aquí?
It's also possible to find them on Twitter in my pinned tweet if it's possible to open. Just a second. Okay. how to open? I just need to put the button.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ahora.
Yes, it's working. Okay. If you talk, as I said in the project, I asked my collectors to choose from 3 different types of my photography. So the first one was their model tests, and this is mostly black and white photography, which I'm doing with different models, not only models, with people too. And this type is mostly about my own perception of the people whom I have inside of my frame. And usually I mostly work with women. Because I'm bad in men's photography, and you can see some of these frames on the screen. Also, just a second. I thought that some of my projects require. Ouch! Why it's not showing here? I don't have the same picture here and on the screen. Okay, right now I have. When I was talking about a bit complicated project which took much time for preparations, it's a great example of this. Here on the shooting is my wife, and we decided to make this project when we have some troubles in our relationships. We decided to find each other once again and to reopen each other through the art. And we made this project as collaborators. You know, while we was making it, we have a lot of arguing about how it will look like. If you look at the background, I think that on those screens the quality is a bit better. If you will look on the background somewhere here, you could see the abstract thing that we made from mounting foam. We bought around 1,000 liters of mounting foam, painted in black and red, and also used some flowers. The idea was, if you see here, the body of the model is covering with those black thing with red leaves. And the idea was to show their synergy of their the synergy of the set, which is like covering the body. The model first touched the background, and it's starting evolving on her body till they're fully covered. And also their project. Okay, it's here. This one is called Equilibrium, and it's about the searching of the balance. You can see black and white shots, but on each of them there is a color. It's not in black and white. We made this shooting, we used the paint on the body of our model. But if you will look closer, you will find some skin tone on each of these shots. We use a plexiglass. All of this is not a 3D. It's a plexiglass which was melted. We made a gypsum plaster copy of our body of the model, and after that we melted the plexiglass on these gypsum plasters and create this styling for the model. And also you see some reflection and refraction. We took like 2 meters plexiglass list and melted it and put it near the camera to make these reflections. I think that's it.
That's so impressive. So impressive. Well done.
Thank you so much. Appreciate for your. Thank you.
En 2-3 minutos estamos ya. Si me prometéis que volvéis, tenéis cerveza. Si no las traigo aquí, me quiero traerlas de aquí. Si queda uno.
I can't hear, sweetie. I have a huge.
Coffee break now. Then we start streaming. You will see the stage.
I see the stage, but Tom, I don't hear any sound. No sound. I don't hear anything.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Great.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic. And now with the mic, we have here everyone in the room. You're seeing the live signal as well. And yeah, we're all looking forward to listening. How you get people.
Hey, Oots. Hi.
Really incentivized. Thank you. All yours now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome in GM. So it's a real honor to be here. And the subject of my talk is going to be something which really suits Web3 and art together, which explains why I am so attached to being a crypto artist. And that subject is freedom. And very often we talk about it and we think about it as freedom to transact. And we think of this in economic terms. And I think it's, of course, much broader than that. I think of it really purely in artistic terms, which is not to say that I ignore the economic terms, but as my practice as an artist, freedom is really the most important thing to me. So I understand I'm talking to a lot of young artists, and I want to express really why they should grab this by the horns. It's really up to us to bring the bull into our practice. And again, I'm speaking artistically, not economically, but really we need to ride the bull here and actually embrace all the freedom that is offered to us. So to start with, I'd like to talk about the role of being a contemporary artist, which is what I've done for 50 years. And in the past 50 years, before Web3, everything that I've done, no matter how much I embrace freedom, and that's what my actual practice is all about, which is listening to my intuition, my heart, the muse, very, very personally, and looking for guidance intuitively and following my heart in order to create works of art that really talk to me. At the same time, I believe that by following a very, very deep, intimate path, then I'm tuning in and finding the capability of expressing to others. However, throughout my entire career, I have always been defined by, whether actively or passively, by a lot of gatekeepers. And so even though I do one thing, then it's the gatekeepers that call it or define it by movements that are not determined by artists, that are defined really by the economic situation. And what I feel is that obstructs the actual view of what I'm doing. It also, it interferes and it gets in the way between me and my audience. So what I'm proposing is that we actually embrace the real freedom of a permissionless ecosystem, which is what Web3 really can be. It's decentralized and we completely follow our heart. Now, for artists, this is an extraordinary thing because it's international and it opens the doors and democratizes art so that not only can you work freely, but you can perceive freely. So I know that when I'm looking at an artist, for example, an artist on the other side of the world. Let's take Lorcan, for example. I understand that Lorcan's work, from looking at it over time, and I really do love his work, Lorcan's work is completely determined by his very personal perception of the world. So the benefit of this is that there is no intermediary telling me what this artist is doing, what another artist is doing, what, for example, right before me, Pobdin spoke. And I look at Pobdin's work completely freely, and I know that he expresses himself completely freely. In the brick and mortar art world that we've all been subject to in the past, we are really defined by gatekeepers that are, number one, not artists. They're not even critics. Actually, they're simply merchants. Now, the problem with that is that the goal of a merchant, of course, is just to sell. Now, as artists, we need to sell also, but it's very, very important that we act purely as artists. Of course, we hope the work will sell. And I think in Web3, the world is big enough for us each to find respective homes for what we do in a purely free way. So I don't think there is a problem with coming to terms with sales, with creating sales. And in fact, there's also the added benefit that in Web3, not only can we thrive as artists and make sales, but the very platforms that we sell our work on are also available to collectors to enhance their purchase by creating liquidity in the secondary market. This picture of a whole ecosystem actually is a very strong benefit for the artist. So I'm not talking about the model from the outside, how efficient it is, let's say, for everyone. You know, I really feel personally as an artist, it gives me freedom. I can work without any limitations from the outside world, do whatever it is I want, and I absolutely feel that the world is big enough to for the work itself to find its home. So in summary, I really believe that the most important thing for every artist is to really embrace freedom, to embrace the freedom to just do whatever it is that comes to their intuition, to look at other art out there, to look at it freely, to connect with other artists, to have a community, and to go forward without the limitation of people that are not actually artists determining how art is defined. I would love to open this dialogue up to questions, and I'd be happy to answer anybody and clarify any of this.
That's great. That's great, Sir Hafka. It's been fantastic to hear you. Also, I know that you guys fell on COVID, and you're still...
We're over. We tested and we're over. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great to hear this. So if anyone has any questions for Hafka about his work, his passion, anything that you'd like to ask.
Hello, Michael. It's so good to see you.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you.
Great to see you.
Yeah, you too. Michael, you spoke about Web3 being instrumental in avoiding these external definitions of your work, especially by gatekeepers or opinion formers. But we know that especially younger artists have grown up in the age of social media and are permanently exposed to opinions, to definitions by others, their work. What would be your advice to them in terms of how to really sort of grasp their inner inner definition and sort of isolate themselves from this constant barrage of what others think their work is?
Sure. I'm not advocating isolation. I don't think that we can be isolated, especially from social media. It's so pervasive. But opinions in general, it doesn't really matter where opinions come from. We always find ways to be insecure. It could be your friend's opinion. It could be a neighbor next door. So it doesn't really matter. I don't think social media is relevant to actually focus on. I think we all have to develop our own form of security and insulation. So now this is very, very hard. It's easier said than done. I personally, as an artist, have cultivated the feeling that it doesn't really matter whether people praise me or insult me. Very early on in my career, people found my work to be very, very difficult, too strong, or not fashionable. It wasn't abstract. It was very focused. There was a lot of criticism of me. And whether it comes from a gatekeeper, whether it comes from a neighbor, whether it comes from social media is actually irrelevant. We have to cultivate the ability to stand independently and be alone. Now, the difference between social media pressure and gatekeepers is a very important distinction. I didn't really speak about social media before, and I'm really grateful that you brought it up. This is just part of the environment where we really have to cultivate freedom and take advantage of it. However, what I was talking about and what is part of the what I would call a very fraudulent art world, which is made up of a few very powerful gatekeepers that have invested a lot in the perception that these select few, the usual suspects, are the most important artists of our time, and that that small group of people are actually representing culture. That's a fraud. I think, that's something that we have to ignore immediately. But social media actually is another door to the world. And there's nothing wrong with paying attention to it. But the goal is not to allow it to interfere with your own natural intuition, with your own natural perception. Of course, natural perception, how we feel about everything in the world is made up of a very, very complex combination of who we are psychologically and intellectually, and all the things that influence us, including our perception of art on social media, go into that. I'm not in favor of isolation. I'm not in favor of ignoring influences. I'm in favor of embracing it all, but cultivating the ability to understand one's own voice.
Hi, how are you? I'm Victor from MetaCampus. It's a pleasure to meet you, Michael. So
Nice to meet you, Victor.
So I had a question in regards to the piece that you made for the exhibition, The Continuum with Salvador Dali. If you want to give us a little bit of insight of what went into the creation of that piece.
Sure. Salvador Dali has been a great influence on me since the very beginning of my career. And actually, since I visited Barcelona when I was 19 years old, and my childhood. So Salvador Dali has always been present in my mind as someone who has discovered an alternate view of reality. So my feelings about surrealism go very, very deep. Surrealism really for me was the adventure of incorporating one's dreams and one's intuition about one's psychology into one's art. And I think Salvador Dali did that really extraordinary, both in his paintings and in the way he presented himself, to the world, even in, funny things like walking around with an anteater and the way he dressed. Salvador Dali really created himself. He was an extraordinary artist. So my approach to painting Salvador Dali, a portrait, was really to create an homage to him, to show my respect, and to incorporate a little bit of his, his presentation. That's why the painting has his famous mustache in it. And that's why, I tried to stick to some form of likeness with Salvador Dali. And I hope it conveys my real deep respect for everything that he created. It's really an extraordinary achievement. I think of him often.
Thank you. It is a great piece indeed. Any other questions? If anyone wants to ask in Spanish, or but you speak English. You have a question?
Hi, I would love to hear about your onboarding to Web3. Really, from you, Michael. If
sure,
I'm very curious about that. How do you get into this world? Because you have deep insights. So I really like to.
Sure. Well, I started doing digital art in the 90s. And, it was quite an extraordinary experience for me. I didn't know anything at all about computers. And actually, when I bought a computer, I bought a Mac Performa, which was very primitive by today's standards. But the reason I bought it was it was all in one box, and I had no idea what a keyboard and a mouse is. And, so I started doing digital art because it was a nonverbal way of communicating. So it was a real adventure for me. And I really I started it with Photoshop and an application called Painter, which still exists. And I used a Wacom tablet, and everything was very much of an adventure. And I remember dreaming in Windows and Photoshop and all of that. It became very, very alive to me. So my approach to digital art was that essentially it was another medium, just like lithographs, just like etchings, just like watercolor, just like oil paint. I embrace all mediums. I think mediums are neutral. I think all artists should try and use everything, because each medium brings with itself a real gift. You can't make a silk screen, for example, look like an oil painting. It's inherently very, very different. And each medium has its beauty. So when I started doing digital art, I tried showing it in the brick and mortar art world I was showing at the time. No one was interested in it at all. It was not something that anybody wanted. There were all sorts of issues, and these are issues that people brought up. They brought up that, you could make unlimited copies of it. There was no way to edition it. There was no way to show provenance. There was no way to actually display it. These are all issues that are being solved as we speak by the blockchain, by screens, by the development of screens. But those issues existed back then, and nobody was interested in it. So as I started hearing about NFTs a couple of years ago, I was really, really intrigued, because finally I thought, wow, here it is. Here's the way to actually avoid, to democratize art, to avoid the gatekeepers, to really embrace the international spirit that art always has, because it's nonverbal. So it doesn't matter whether I'm speaking in English or speaking in Spanish or speaking in Swahili. None of that matters. I can communicate internationally. So the whole appeal of Web3 was just so extraordinary to me that I embraced it the moment I heard about it. The learning curve was not really as tough as people like to make out. There were some obstacles in the very, very beginning, but basically my attitude towards it was, here finally was the way for digital art or for traditional art materials to be digitized, to be brought onto the blockchain. There's so many benefits. It just seemed clear to me that Web3 was ascendant. It was the way to go, and it will triumph. I have actually been very, very convinced from the very, very beginning, and this is especially relevant to today because of the so-called bear market. There are always bear markets. There are always downturns. There are always naysayers. But technology itself cannot be stopped. If one approaches Web3 with real mental clarity, you can see that the technology is such that it opens so many doors, it cannot be stopped. So I believed in it from the very start and embraced it, and I still do at this very moment.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you. So next workshop is going to be on site. You coming over to Barcelona next year? You know, you gave me your word, and definitely taking that. Yeah,
I'm definitely coming. That'll be great.
Thank you very much, Havka. Say hi to Jonah, and then yeah, you know, have a.
Thank you, everybody, and let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. Hey, Jonah. They are the loveliest couple in Web3, officially.
Thank you so much, Per. Thank you, all of you. This has been a really great pleasure, and I hope we all make a lot of art together and create. There's absolutely nothing to stop us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now with Michael's workshop, it's finally and officially a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone. So much work has gone behind this. You know, so many kilometers. Salma, thank you, and Joka, everyone, Guillermo, no, Xavi. No, really, thank you so much, and for you coming over, David, the wives, the boyfriends, you know, all the family members, and all the students as well. Really want to thank all the students from the art schools for coming over in the last 3 days. And yeah, beer time.